Good morning, RB, and it's lovely to be here at a civilised hour in the morning rather than the early morning shift. Throughout this week, we have spent much time discussing the concept of the NHS, and we really must recognise there is no longer a single National Health Service. Instead, we have 4 different systems operating across the 4 nations of the UK. And it's in this context that NHS Scotland is facing a unique set of challenges and opportunities as it turns 70 next week. I want to start on a positive note. In Scotland, there is a long-standing consensus in keeping with the founding vision of the NHS and against the kind of privatisation and use of market forces that we have seen in England. Building on that consensus, considering just the last year, we have had some notable successes in Scotland. Particularly important is the new GP contract, designed to deliver a reduction in workload and in risk for GPs. This contract took an immense amount of work and real innovation from the SGPC negotiators to deliver it, and I congratulate them. SJDC are close to reaching agreement on concrete measures that will improve the working lives of junior doctors and also their safety at work, while the Scottish Consultants Committee and our SAS Committee are in discussions with the Government on measures that will support the work of their members and are also developing a prescription for the future of secondary care in Scotland. Much more on that over the coming year. And finally, on the positive front, the much-awaited new BMA Scotland conference, which we held in Glasgow in April, really was a resounding success. And my thanks to those of you from the other nations who came along as well. However, the overall situation in the NHS in Scotland remains grave. Granted, our cross-professional survey results in Scotland are slightly less negative than in England. And it is often put to me as some sort of sign of achievement that some elements of the performance of the NHS in Scotland are better than in England. Well, really, how could you set the bar lower than that? The survey results in Scotland demonstrate the stark reality of a profession pushed to the brink. While doctors are delivering high-quality care wherever and however we possibly can, we are stretched to the limit of what we were capable of doing. OK, we may not quite have reached the dire working conditions and morale seen in England, but we're clinging by our fingertips from sliding down a similar path. Over the past 4 years chairing BMA Scotland, it has been with dismay that I've seen more and more expected of doctors, with demand and pressures increasing substantially year on year. And at the same time, pay continues to be cut in real terms each year. Vacancies are increasing, vacancies are harder to fill. This is not sustainable for our NHS or for our profession. We know from the survey, 2/3 of Scottish doctors told us that resources are so inadequate that they are significantly affecting the quality and safety of care. 71% said that overall NHS services have worsened in the last year in Scotland. And 9 out of 10 told us, to no surprise from us, but to dismay all the same, that staffing is simply not adequate to provide proper quality patient care. This just is not good enough, either for patients or for doctors. We all want to provide the very best care we can. We're prevented from doing so because we are in an under-resourced, understaffed system, and we need urgent action from government. 9 out of 10 doctors in Scotland told us that without a significant budget increase, they expect that the NHS will not be able to deliver comprehensive care within a decade. Now, we have heard about the plans for additional investment in England's NHS announced by the Prime Minister in recent days. We know the expectation that there will be Barnett consequentials and flow of further resources to Scotland, and that may give us an opportunity to at least work on some of that resource gap. The precise figure for money coming to Scotland will not be known for some time, but we can be sure that this alone will not be sufficient to move NHS Scotland to a fully sustainable footing for the longer term. We will need investment on a greater scale over the years ahead, and we will need concerted action to tackle the issues with recruitment and retention. Pay and conditions for doctors must be improved. They must reflect the challenges and responsibilities of the job, and they must reverse the years of real terms pay cuts that have done absolutely nothing to attract doctors to live and work in Scotland. And we have to end our obsession in Scotland with a narrow range of targets that tell us little about outcomes for patients and lead to a culture of blame and political pressure. There is always going to be a need for data within our NHS, but the political and media narrative is often driven by waiting times that say very little about standards of care or what is best for the patient. Scotland must also continue to be bold in its efforts to tackle major public health challenges. Finally, after years, we won the argument on minimum unit pricing, but it is now important to focus on other radical action. For example, with regard to adverse childhood experiences, given the clear evidence of negative effects on mental and physical health for children once they become adults that we've already heard about earlier this morning. I know that we all wish to deliver a future in which our successors, maybe even some of us, are going to be gathered in a place like this 30 years from now, reflecting with pride on the achievements of all four of our NHSs as they mark their centenary. But if that is to be the case, Scottish Government needs to listen to our call for action in the areas that I've been setting out, and only by doing so can we ensure that the NHS in Scotland will be able to celebrate many birthdays to come. To conclude, I want to thank Scotland's doctors for being such a fantastic workforce to represent over the last 4 years. I'm riding off into the sunset in just a couple of months now, and I want to thank BMA Scottish Council and committee members for all of their advice, encouragement and support over these 4 years, and I want to pay particular thanks to the absolutely excellent staff of BMA Scotland, led so ably by Jill over on my left. Their knowledge, their dedication are crucial to what we do for doctors and will continue to be so long after I am out of office. Deputy Chair, I move.
Dr. Bennie, I'd like to join with the RB in thanking you for your awesome leadership of Scottish Council. To Dr. Peter Bennie.